It was 1956, and Grumman had developed a new aircraft that could counter the MiG-15, a Soviet jet fighter establishing its dominance over the skies of Korea, engulfed in a furious war between communism and the free world. Like the MiG, Grumman had introduced the F11F Tiger, an innovative swept-wing carrier-based fighter that had already achieved an impressive Mach 1 speed during its maiden flight, turning it into the second U.S. Navy aircraft to reach supersonic speeds. Test pilot Thomas Attridge was now testing the Tiger's 20mm guns off the coast of Long Island while simulating a dogfight. The pilot aimed at the ocean, then fired 4 quick, accurate bursts and immediately went into a dive. Exactly 11 seconds later, he noticed something unusual. Something had struck his Tiger's canopy glass and one of the engine intake lips. The Tiger began going down immediately. Attridge was sure it was a bird, but the truth was much more unusual. The United States and Soviet Union found themselves introducing some of their brand new technology during the Korean War, which erupted in June 1950 after the unexpected invasion of communist North Korea against South Korea. Hell broke loose, and the air forces from both parties raced to introduce their jet aircraft to establish air superiority over the Korean peninsula. Despite already having several successful jets, the U.S. Air Force and Navy were amazed by the debut of the latest USSR fighter, the MiG-15. The Soviets immediately gained the upper hand with the MiG-15. Its unique swept-back wingspan allowed the fighter to fly as fast as the speed of sound. Furthermore, the MiG-15 was easily maneuverable and armed to the teeth, surpassing the performance of American straight-wing designs that were relegated to ground attack roles. The MiG swept-wing design offered several aerodynamic advantages, mainly when operating at high speeds, delaying the onset of wave drag and allowing the fighter to fly faster before it increased. At higher speeds, the MiG-15 swept wing improved its lift-to-drag ratio, resulting in better fuel efficiency and increased range at cruising speeds. Outclassed by the fighters in the Soviet arsenal, the U.S. Navy immediately sought to develop an aircraft that could compete against the new threat and protect its carriers. In World War II, Grumman Aircraft had helped change the tide of the Pacific theater with its successful lineage of fighters, which included the single-seat, piston-engined F4F Wildcat and F6F Hellcat. These successful aircraft were followed by post-war designs such as the twin-engined F7F Tiger Cat, the F8F Bearcat, and the company's first jet aircraft, the F9F Panther, which later transitioned to the F9F Cougar. Based on the feedback from combat pilots who fought during the early days of the Korean War and witnessed the incredible firepower of the MiG-15 and its swept-wing design, Grumman set out to improve the Panther by adopting a swept-wing configuration for its carrier-based jet fighter. Besides its unique 35-degree swept-back wings that replaced the straight-wing designs of its predecessor, the Cougar was superior to the Panther in speed, control, and overall performance. Upgraded engines enhanced the fighter's speed, climb rate, and maneuverability during combat operations without compromising its rugged design envisioned for carrier operations. While graceful, the Cougar featured robust landing gear, an arrestor hook, and folding wings to save space on Navy carriers. The feline flew for the first time in September 1951, while the conflict over the Korean peninsula raged on. It was introduced a year later to the Navy and Marines in December 1952. Despite its top-notch performance, Grumman took the F9F Cougar as the founding pillar for the Navy's new aircraft destined to outmatch the Soviet MiG-15. The ambitious program to modernize the Cougar to turn it into a competitor to the MiG-15 began soon after its introduction. The project was designated Model G98. In addition to being more potent than the base Cougar, Grumman also hoped to minimize the fighter's size and, more importantly, improve the design's area rule, a design technique that helped reduce a plane's drag when flying at supersonic speeds. All these ambitious objectives made it impossible for Grumman engineers to use a standard Cougar. Model G98 required more than a simple redesign. By the time the project ended, the existing prototype had evolved into a completely different aircraft that barely resembled the Cougar. A new Grumman feline fighter had been born. This new aircraft was dubbed the Tiger. 2 prototypes were produced under the designation XF9F8. While the Tiger retained the innovative and effective swept-wing design of the F9F Cougar, it featured several improvements that made it more effective. The new wing featured full-span leading-edge slats and a trailing-edge flap with roll control that employed spoilers instead of ailerons, enhancing the design's maneuverability and control. A portion of the wings was also hinged to fold downwards for easy storage on Navy carriers. The folding process was done manually and did not require any additional systems. Overall, the Tiger's fuselage was cylindrical and featured a single triangular-shaped vertical tail. The horizontal tailplane was all-moving and was mounted low on the rear fuselage. The undercarriage was rugged, as expected from a carrier-based fighter. It featured a conventional tricycle arrangement. The cockpit was placed in front of the nose and was covered by a rear-sliding canopy. A Wright J65 turbojet engine, a licensed version of the British Armstrong Siddeley Sapphire, powered both prototypes. It was placed in the center aft section of the fuselage, allowing the Tiger to reach a top speed of 750 miles per hour, a rate of climb of 5,100 feet per minute, and a service ceiling of 40,000 feet. The design had a length of 47 feet, a width of 31 feet, a height of 13 feet, and an empty weight of around 13,500 pounds. To even the odds against land-based enemy fighters, the Tiger was armed with 4 20mm Colt Mark 12 internal automatic cannons. It could carry up to 4 AIM-9 Sidewinder short-range air-to-air missiles under the wings that could be switched for jettisonable fuel tanks for increased range. The prototype of the Tiger was delivered to the U.S. Navy in 1954, and its maiden flight was on July 30th. For this initial test, the Tiger employed a non-afterburning engine of the J65, as that version was still under development and failed to meet the delivery schedule for the test. Nonetheless, the Tiger surprised the Navy after it managed to nearly reach Mach 1 or break the speed of sound during the flight. By the time the afterburning engines were ready, the Tiger astonished the Navy after becoming the second Navy aircraft to break the sound barrier after the Douglas F-4D Skyray. Following these milestones, the Navy approved the designation F11 for the Tiger after it concluded it was not an upgraded Cougar, but a new aircraft altogether. Production began in mid-1955. USS Forester was the first carrier to receive the new fighter after trials were conducted aboard her in April 1956. Over 200 Tigers were produced, with a reconnaissance variant that featured dedicated cameras for photographic intelligence. Up to 7 squadrons of Tigers were formed in the U.S. Navy, leading them to serve carriers such as USS Ranger, Saratoga, Intrepid, Forrestal, and Bonhomme Richard. Navy pilots praised the aircraft's handling characteristics, and the mechanics were pleased with the airframe's easy maintenance. However, the operation of the F-11 Tiger was halted due to several unfortunate circumstances. First and foremost, the power plant proved troublesome. Despite its incredible potency, the engine was unreliable, and the afterburning concept resulted in relatively short operational ranges, a red flag for Navy fighters operating at sea. The afterburner, the secondary combustion engine, injected additional fuel into the exhaust stream and increased the velocity of the exhaust gases, dramatically increasing the Tiger's thrust and speed at the cost of increased fuel consumption. Although this feature was ideal when the fighter required a sudden burst of speed during supersonic travel or combat maneuvers, it consumed fuel faster than a standard turbojet engine, severely limiting the Tiger's long-range capabilities. As if that was not enough, the Tiger's introduction coincided with the Vought F-8U Crusader. Although the Tiger was faster than the Crusader at sea level and had better handling characteristics, it was over 300 miles slower at 35,000 feet and lacked the Crusader's superior combat range. This led the Navy to abruptly cancel its contracts with Grumman, leading the company to deliver barely over 200 aircraft before any upgrades were made. The last Tiger was given to the Navy in January 1959. Thus, Grumman's promised MiG-15 destroyer had a short operational service of just 4 years. The U.S. Navy officials removed it from carrier service in 1961, canceling orders. No efforts were made to upgrade it for the Navy. Still unsatisfied with its fighter, Grumman attempted to address the performance issues with a revamped version dubbed the Super Tiger. Grumman's F11F Super Tiger emerged as a bold experiment, integrating the General Electric J79 turbojet engine, renowned for its immense power. Surpassing the previous J65 engine, the J79 promised unparalleled thrust, later earning acclaim as the powerhouse driving the F4 Phantom. The fusion of the J79 with a modified F-11 airframe defied expectations, propelling the Super Tiger beyond the bounds Grumman expected. In a remarkable 1957 test flight, the Super Tiger soared to a breathtaking 1,400 miles per hour at over 40,000 feet, achieving a historic milestone as the Navy's inaugural aircraft to break Mach 2. The following year, the Super Tiger leapt forward and ascended to unprecedented heights, clinching an impressive altitude record of 76,939 feet. Despite its extraordinary capabilities, the U.S. Navy refrained from commissioning it for production. Allegedly, Grumman's attempts to market the aircraft domestically and abroad were hindered by an alleged Lockheed bribery scandal, dooming the Super Tiger's promising future. Although the F-11 Tiger had a short service life and the Super Tiger never made it to production, the aircraft still made it to the history books for two reasons. Besides being the second U.S. Navy aircraft to reach supersonic speeds, the F-11 Tiger was involved in an unusual incident during its first tests. On September 21, 1956, test pilot Thomas Attridge took to the skies aboard one of the F-11 Tigers to test the fighter's maneuverability, speed, and cannons. The skies were clear, and the seasoned pilot danced gracefully with the Tiger across the horizon, slowly climbing at different altitudes and testing the engine. Attridge dropped the Tiger's nose 20 degrees and aimed at the vast ocean off the coast of Long Island. He fired a short 4-second burst from the 4 Mark 12 20mm cannons. The test pilot then went into a steeper descent and hit the afterburners. While the aircraft did so, the round's energy depleted, and they began to fall back into the ocean, coinciding with the flight path of Attridge and the Tiger. At over 7,000 feet, he felt something hit his canopy glass and the engine intake lips. The fighter began to lose power. Instead of bailing out, the pilot took the Tiger back to the mainland. Attridge crash-landed and barely survived. He suffered several wounds, but made a full recovery in the following months. Attridge told his peers a bird had struck him, only to find out his own bursts had hit him. The man had managed to shoot himself down just 11 seconds after firing the Tiger's cannons. Following its retirement from the U.S. Navy, the Tigers became Blue Angels flight demonstration team icons for over a decade. The fighters were heavily featured in the team after their first acquisition in April 1957. Some of the Tiger's many maneuvers included precision positions in which the aircraft were just 36 inches apart. All of the Tigers from the Blue Angels served for over 12 years before they were replaced by F-4J Phantoms in 1969 at the height of the Cold War. Once the fighters were retired, they found new life as testbeds for in-flight thrust control systems. Although the F-11 Tiger had a short service life, many of the technology and design features of the aircraft became the founding pillar of the company's next hit, the innovative and time-tested F-14 Tomcat.